Now let's talk about Facebook-gate. The blame game is getting nasty as Facebook and its PR firm, Burson Marsteller, try to clean up the mess they created. Facebook has admitted to hiring Burson to plant negative stories about Google, but reportedly says Burson handled the assignment ineptly. A former Burson executive called the stunt grubby and creepy. The Burson employees involved were former CNBC technology reporter Jim Goldman and John Mercurio, a former political reporter. But the PR firm has pointed the finger squarely back at Facebook, saying they should never have taken the assignment in the first place. Now, no one knows for sure what the fallout's been behind the scenes at Facebook, but consider the backdrop, a bitter family feud between Facebook and Google. It didn't help that Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg hired his number two, Sheryl Sandberg, away from Google in 2008. And not long after that, Sandberg poached Google's top PR rep, Elliot Schrage, to be Facebook's head of PR. So the big question remains, who is taking the blame at Facebook? Cory?
Oh, well, let's bring in Dan Lyons from the Daily Beast. Now, Dan broke the story that Facebook was behind this corporate espionage. Dan joins us from Boston. Now, Dan, you're reporting that Burson Marsteller employees who were involved in this are going to keep their jobs but be re-educated. So who takes the blame for this ultimately?
Yeah, it seems like both sides look bad. And both sides, I think, are just going to brazen it out and kind of hope that the whole thing blows over. So Burson is saying we're not going to fire anybody and we'll just do some training and hand out an ethics pamphlet. And Facebook is saying nothing. Facebook is just locked down, saying nothing. And I think they're just going to try to ride it out.
It's kind of spectacular. I loved your articles on this in the Daily Beast, and I want to bring up a couple quotes there. So one of the things you said, referring to the guys who were working at this company, the PR guys, saying, quote, here were two guys from one of the biggest PR agencies in the world blustering around Silicon Valley like a pair of Keystone cops.
Yeah. When I talk to PR people about this, nobody's really shocked that Facebook would try to spread negative stuff about Google. They sort of say that's how the game is played. But what they're stunned by is just how inept and how clumsy the PR guys were. They weren't very subtle or sophisticated about this. It was pretty ham-handed, and it backfired on them as a result.
Yeah, I mean, and awkward for me because I used to work with Jim Goldman at another station in life, and a strange one. But you mentioned ham-handed. I mean, another quote from your article, you said the PR flacks aren't shocked that Facebook would try to run a negative campaign against Google. But you go on to say, but they are chortling about how ham-handed Burson's PR guys are. What's interesting to me about this isn't just that, the PR guys are doing this kind of stuff, but that this is somewhat, at least in Silicon Valley, atypical. Is this more of a Washington kind of approach to PR?
Yeah, and I think it was run out of D.C. with Burson Marsteller. I actually think the whole thing was focused on Washington more than Silicon Valley. But, what the big mistakes they made, the one big mistake they made was they were going around pitching a story, but they wouldn't say who the client was. So, for example, it's actually very common for me, as a reporter, to get information from some PR agency that's representing a company that might have some, negative information about one of their competitors. But I know where it's coming from. I mean, we get those kind of pitches, and you take it for what it's worth. In this case, what got people curious was they wouldn't say they were spreading this stuff about Google, but they wouldn't say, who was paying for this. The other thing they did that was really kind of dumb was they reached out to a blogger that they didn't know, and they said, hey, not only here's all this information about Google, not only would we like you to write about it, we'll actually write the op-ed for you, you sign it, and then we'll go take it and try to get it published on the Huffington Post or in the Washington Post. So we'll go publish it for you. And that, this blogger was just sort of appalled at how gross and sleazy that was. So he posted all of this exchange online. That's how the whole thing broke. He just basically embarrassed these guys. And really, I mean, that's kind of unheard of, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that was just really dumb,
Dan, you were able to figure out that it was Facebook, in fact, behind this. So I wonder, does someone at Facebook got to take a hit for this? Is someone going to fall on their sword and get fired by the company, leave the company? This is a company that has had great struggles with issues around privacy and seems to stumble all the time before they do the right thing.
Yeah, you know, and I think, and I've been talking to people close to the company, in around the company, and, you know, I mean, the guy who runs communications at Facebook is Elliot Schrage. He, I think, was the point man on this. He was the one who engaged with Burson. His boss would be Sheryl Sandberg, and also a close friend of his, and then there's Mark Zuckerberg. And the question is, who knew what and when did they know it? But I actually don't think they're going to do anything. I don't think anybody's going to get fired. It, you know, occurred to me, if this was in England, definitely someone would have to resign so they could have a sacrificial resignation. Yeah. If it was Japan, someone would have to kill themselves. But because it's California, it's a teachable moment, you know, and they'll sort of say, well, we made a mistake and we wish we had been more transparent, so, you know, next time we'll do better, which is kind of what Facebook always says when they get in trouble.
Right.
But I think that's how it's going to shake out.
Dan Lyons, thanks. Maybe a member of Parliament will finally take the fall for this. Dan Lyons of the Daily Beast, technology editor at Newsweek. Thanks for coming on.